please, let's all engage. Let's share this. And I'm happy Garissa University is here. My own classmate and deskmate, Professor Warfa Osman Ahmed, is the Vice Chancellor there. We sat with him in class. He has sent a representative from Garissa. Garissa is very close to us because I'm a professor of Moi University, and you know what happened. They were a college before they became a full university, and we have nursed those young people to graduate. We graduated last year, and we say you can rise from the ashes and become a strong institution. So with those many remarks, nawakaribisha sana, asanteni. I wish I could say a few words in Ethiopian. I've forgotten my Amharic already. I'm not going there very much. But people from Uganda will say Mwewa Lenyo Kuja. I can't remember a bit of Acholi, but I think I could say Apoe Mate. Apoe Mate. Yeah, so I think I can remember that. So welcome, and we are East Africans, and that's why we sing that anthem. Thank you.
I am Tigis Taizo. I'm representing IGAD's Conflict Early Warning and Response Mechanism, which Dr. Sende here also represents. And IGAD CEWARN is a very proud partner of Austria. We have collaborated with this project, has already been written from the get-go, and we also work with them on similar other projects. And we're happy to be associated with it, and we're happy to see this day when years of work is seeing the light of day and fruition. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Bonjour. Yeah, I'm Ramata from IDRC, the International Development Research Center. I'm Senegalese by nationality, but Kenyan by adoption now. I've been in Kenya for 7 years now, working with IDRC as the regional office, covering sub-Saharan Africa. It is always a pleasure coming here with my friends from Austria and their colleagues to take part of this very important event. I think we were here 2 years ago for the launch of that project. It's very rewarding to see how far they have been. We have gone with their research, and I look forward to hearing more details about what the findings, but more importantly, the strategic recommendation that can be used to shape policies and practices to prevent, youth involvement in violence, especially in extremism. Thank you very much.
Good morning. I want to start by thanking you all for finding time to come and share knowledge with us. Austria and her partners who are IDRC, CEWARN, IGAD, and PeaceNet are honored. Thank you very much. I will not say much because I have a lot of time to share the findings of the research on the Kenyan chapter and also to contribute to the Ugandan chapter because we carried the research both in Kenya and Uganda.
I must start again by thanking Austria for creating this wonderful platform and the great work that they've done through this research and the wider spectrum of the work that has already been described. So thank you, Professor Barasa, Dr. Trofena. We're very happy to be associated with this work. And I think they need a double applause, especially after the introduction of the participants. I think this workshop kind of sets the standard on what the composition of participants of such workshops should be. We've all seen very veteran women leaders, but also a lot of young fledgling women leaders in big quantities, and this is really commendable. I want to also ride on the eloquent protocol acknowledgement done by Professor Barasa to acknowledge the presence of senior government officials from republics of Kenya and Uganda, particularly the governors from Gulu and Mayunge, Mr. Martin Ojara, Honorable Oman Bongo, respectively. Also representatives of Ministries of Interior, National Steering Committee on Peace Building and Conflict Prevention, which happens to be a very strong partner of CEWARN, as well as the Parliament of Kenya, and other partners, IDRC through Mrs. Ramata, PeaceNet, and others. So distinguished participants, all protocol observed. Again, it's a pleasure to join you this morning. I'm here to speak on behalf of the CEWARN Director, Mr. Kamle Somogo, who's been a very strong supporter of this project from the beginning, but was unable to join us today. So please accept his greetings and apologies. As many of you may already know, IGAD's Conflict Early Warning and Response Mechanism is a specialized institute of IGAD, mandated to support IGAD member states in terms of devising collaborative and proactive responses to violent conflicts. It does this through using early warning data and analysis. We have a regional office in Addis Ababa, but we're able to carry out this work across the region effectively through an elaborative network of governments and civil society organizations across the board, which do early warning data collection, analysis, dissemination, and working with decision makers to support response initiatives. And part of one of our key working methods really emphasizes collaboration between government and civil society organizations. So, constituencies like this really excite us. CEWARN has been in existence since 2002, and its work has gradually grown to embrace all manners of conflict. Violent extremism and terrorism obviously are of keen importance. We are very happy to be associated with this project, like I said, for two important reasons. The first one is, as you all know, violent extremism is one of the most formidable challenges facing this region, and almost all member states of IGAD are directly affected by it, and I'm sure you all know that. Its causes are, quite complex and multifaceted, and we appreciate that it requires a matching, sophisticated, well-coordinated, robust response. And CEWARN's approach in tackling security issues, including violent extremism, is, emphasizing a human security approach and also an all-of-society approach, which is collaborative, where every sector of society has a part. I mean, in concrete terms, this would mean always engaging with communities in areas that are affected by conflict, amplifying their voices and concerns, but also giving them space to be part of devising solutions. So, I mean, when it comes to the subject of today, it would mean according a lot of weight to the voice of youth, particularly those who come from vulnerable communities, and really pushing them to lead our programs, our responses to violent extremism. Secondly, while conflict early warning work often is inevitably inclined to crisis management or firefighting, CEWARN increasingly sees its role, the need for our data, our policy development responses from government, tackling issues like, governance, socioeconomic equality, that ultimately are at the root of peace and security challenges, including violent extremism. And again, we're very supportive of this project because we understand it's also an effort in the same direction. As I tried to mention earlier, CEWARN's interest in violent extremism issues is from a preventive angle, but looking at IGAD as an entity with its multiple programs and various units, we kind of take a holistic approach. Some of you may already know that IGAD has a dedicated fledgling Center of Excellence on Preventing and Countering Violent Extremism, which is based in Djibouti. It devises various programs, including platforms for counter-messaging, engagement with civil society organizations in areas that are most vulnerable to violent extremism. IGAD also has a security sector program called ISSP, which works with governments in strengthening their capacities to combat violent extremism. This include supporting security institutions to monitor, track, apprehend, and prosecute individuals engaged in violent extremism. So a bit of a hard approach. But we also have other units like the Social Development Division that addresses issues to do with education, health, livelihoods, and employment, which are also quite relevant when it comes to tackling violent extremism. So by way of summary, what we strongly feel as key principles in tackling violent extremism from IGAD's side is, number one, emphasis on prevention versus reaction. Like I said, an all-of-society approach and emphasis on initiatives driven by grassroots in vulnerable communities and really strengthening them. Emphasis on addressing the root causes, human security approach, addressing issues of youth, particularly disenfranchised youth population, again in vulnerable communities, embracing technology, including social media, and finally, really addressing violent extremism within the broader context of conflict prevention, both in terms of policy and practice, because really when you look at it, drivers of violent extremism are linked with the same political, socio-economic conditions that fall within the realm of peace, security, and development that concerns us all across the board. So let me conclude by saying CEWARN is very glad that the exercise has reached its fruition today, and we anticipate that it will add concrete value to the work that's being done by the respective governments of Kenya and Uganda and all the stakeholders involved. We're keen for this work to expand to other member states as much as possible, and we're very keen to continue to collaborate with you. And I wish you all successful deliberations. Thank you.
My name is Maseneki. I'm the Programs Manager at ISNET. And I'm very happy to be here today. As I mentioned before, I'm not even happy, actually excited to see the faces that it's been long since I saw. And I noticed we have a cocktail of participants today. And I hope we have so much to share, so much to exchange, so much to learn. And I'm particularly looking forward to networking with each and every one of you so that I can learn and know how we can continue partnering together at ISNET, personally, at individual level, and all that. So thank you so much, organizers, for today. It's been a long process, and we are grateful that it has come to this since the inception, the baseline, conducting the baseline study that we are a big part of. And we still are a big part of this process. To everything that will be presented today, we are so happy to have been part of it. ISNET is a national peace building NGO that provides a platform for other stakeholders committed to peace building, committed to conflict transformation, to actually execute their mandate. So for this research, we were the implementing partner, identifying the CSOs that we partnered with, and identifying the people that, the communities that we collected the data from. And we learned a lot. We learned that there is so much in our communities that is yet to be researched, that has been researched. And it was an eye-opening experience for me personally. And as we go to the dissemination, I'm sure we'll learn so much about those communities. So that will be it from ISNET at this time. Thank you so much, and I hope we'll have a fruitful engagement today. And that networking bit, I hope I'll also have an opportunity to network with each and every one of you. Thank you.
My name is Rejoice Eve Namale from Malawi, and I'm a youth and women empowerment advocate. I'm currently being hosted at Youth Alive Kenya in an exchange program called South to South Youth Participation Exchange Program, focusing on youth participation and good governance. I should commend the researchers at this particular event because they managed to put youth at the focus. They managed to focus on equity and solidarity, meaning that differences, whether socioeconomic status or background, were put aside, but they actually allowed the youth to play important roles in influencing the research and influencing the findings. I should commend them because they put the youth at the forefront, which is needed in all development processes. Thank you very much.
I'm also here because I believe that young people being included in the conversation, in the planning and designing implementation of interventions meant to address violence and peace building should have young people inclusive and included. Hence, I believe that this research by Australia will very much inform our work on the ground. My aha moment was the whole conversation. I think a lot of narratives that have come up are not documented. They're the silent big elephant in the room that we don't talk about, but one that we need to address so that we can be able to have sustainable impact in peace building. I loved the recommendations. The recommendations for me were the take home. I pray and hopefully all partners will be able to implement the recommendation put forth by the research and to enable us to have meaningful and constructive youth engagement in peace building processes across the board. And thank you for the invite, Australia, and keep up the good job.
I've also learned that in Kenya, it's not the absence of policies, rather it's the gaps in policy implementation that is the main issue that we're seeing. That's why youth feel left out.
You cannot tackle or prevent or counter violent extremism without involving the youth themselves. There's no way you can discuss issues of youth without the presence of the youth. And the research that was conducted from Uganda and Kenya has really shown us a different angle where people can be radicalized, not only religious, but also on political grounds. I'm looking forward to see a youth-led movement that counters, prevents, and tackles violent extremism in the African region.